Welcome back to UK Ago, and stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear isn't just another headline. It's a warning, a mirror, and a story that Britain cannot afford to ignore. Breaking. A city explodes at 2:14 p.m. Not in wartime, not under cover of darkness, but on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, in broad daylight, in the heart of Birmingham. What unfolded was something Britain has not witnessed in decades. A full-scale breakdown centered around a refugee facility, 5 metro stations shutting down at once, thousands stranded underground, streets gridlocked, and for 2 long hours, total silence from Westminster. This is the story of what happens when fear grows unchecked and leadership goes missing. The explosion at the Olai refugee facility was not the beginning of the crisis. It was the moment everything finally boiled over. For months, Birmingham had been simmering, complaints ignored, misunderstandings between communities, tensions rising in small, quiet increments. The Midlands, once a symbol of diversity and coexistence, had cracks forming that no one wanted to acknowledge. Then came Tuesday. At 1:40 p.m., a single anonymous message flashed across Telegram. Refugee group attacked locals near Olai facility. No source, no evidence, no context, but enough to ignite a city already on edge. Within 20 minutes, hundreds gathered outside the facility. By 2 p.m., more than 1,000. Police tried to respond, but nearly 40 patrol vehicles were trapped in heavy congestion across the city. Officers on foot formed a thin barrier, but they were outnumbered and overwhelmed. At 2:14 p.m., the explosion. Witnesses say the metal barriers buckled as the crowd surged. People pushed forward, others pushed back, and the entire line collapsed. Panic swept through the street. Fires were lit in bins across the district, sending black smoke rising into the sky. Phones came out instantly. Streams hit TikTok, X, Facebook. Birmingham is burning trended within minutes. But these videos showed fragments, panic, crowds, smoke, not the full picture. At 2:26 p.m., clashes erupted as sections of the crowd turned on each other. Police shields came up, but they couldn't hold the line. Backup was stuck behind blocked roads. Under the Aston Expressway, 3 groups collided: anti-immigration activists, locals who believed the Telegram rumor, and a masked group carrying improvised shields. No planning, no dialogue. The confrontation erupted instantly. Flares lit the underside of the motorway in an unnatural red glow, seen from passing cars whose drivers slowed to record the chaos. At 2:41 p.m., a delivery lorry tried to escape, clipped a divider, and flipped onto its side with a sharp mechanical screech. Steam hissed upward. Someone yelled, "Bomb!" and the word shot through the crowd like electricity. A stampede followed. Barriers toppled. Cyclists fell. Families struggled to move through the crush. The lorry never exploded. There was never a bomb. But fear doesn't wait for corrections. By 3 p.m., Birmingham fractured into multiple crisis zones. Snow Hill, Bull Street, New Street, Corporation Street, 5 ways, all shut down within minutes. Thousands trapped underground eventually emerged through emergency exits into crowds already panicked above ground. Cars were abandoned mid-junction. Drivers reversed along one-way streets. Buses sat empty, stranded at odd angles. Social media became the city's only information source, and that's where truth drowned. A false post claiming refugees are marching toward the city center reached tens of thousands in minutes. It wasn't real, but belief spreads faster than accuracy. Police reinforcements pushed in on foot at 2:55 p.m., shields raised, but their arrival only added to confusion. Some assumed officers were preparing to charge. Others believed they were retreating. Every gesture was misread. Every movement sparked fresh panic. At 3:04 p.m., Midlands police authorized contain and hold, a rare tactic used only when crowds spiral beyond control. But containment was no longer possible. Half the people didn't know what they were running from. The other half were certain they were running for their lives. Then came the drone incident. A hobbyist drone capturing footage was struck by a bottle, fell onto a car roof, and shattered. Someone shouted it was an attack from above, and the rumors spread instantly. Within minutes, phones buzzed with claims of armed groups, escaped refugees, far-right mobs. None of it true, but all of it believed. By 3:20 p.m., Birmingham was no longer dealing with a protest or a clash. It was dealing with the collapse of communication and trust. And in every live stream, every video, every street corner, people asked the same question: where is the government? Westminster said nothing. For nearly 2 hours, silence louder than sirens. The emergency meeting finally began at 4:10 p.m. By then, millions had already seen the chaos online. Inside the cabinet office, officials argued whether to intervene, warn the public, or stand down. Some feared deploying the military would ignite accusations of authoritarianism. Others insisted inaction was more dangerous. The debate dragged on. Then, at 4:20 p.m., a leak hit X and Telegram. Operation Hold Line. Do not intervene unless major casualties confirmed. The public took it as proof that Westminster was abandoning Birmingham. But while chaos dominated the screens, something else happened. Something quiet, human, and almost invisible beneath the noise. At 4:32 p.m., an abandoned bus became a shelter. Refugees and locals together pulled people inside, shielding them from the smoke. A teenager covered a coughing child with his own jacket. Under the expressway, a young refugee dragged an injured police officer to safety before backup reached him. Shopkeepers opened shutters to offer refuge, not commerce. A small family from the refugee center pulled terrified pedestrians into their flat, closing the blinds as distant sirens echoed. Even in the worst moments, humanity didn't collapse. It resurfaced. So what caused Birmingham to erupt? It wasn't refugees. It wasn't locals. It wasn't one message, one rumor, or one spark. It was the silence that came before. Months of tension unaddressed. Communities left without answers. Leaders too afraid to speak early, hoping problems would disappear if ignored. Silence isn't neutral. Silence is a vacuum, and vacuums fill with fear, misinformation, and suspicion. Birmingham burned because people were scared and no one told them the truth. Fear took control, and fear, left alone, becomes its own explosion. This is Britain's warning. A warning that division ignites faster than anyone expects. A warning that sunlight doesn't make a crisis safer. It only makes it impossible to hide. The question isn't what happened on Tuesday. The question is what happens next. Will the government finally speak with clarity? Will communities rebuild trust? Or will silence continue to be Westminster's loudest policy? Birmingham waited 2 hours for answers. How long will your city wait? Tell us in the comments what Britain must do now. Share this story. And if you want the truth the mainstream won't touch, subscribe, because this story isn't over yet.